Welcome to the All Together Show with Eric Satz. On this show, you'll hear Eric's unfiltered interviews with interesting and untraditional entrepreneurs who ignored boundaries, followed their instincts and own paths, and are now empowering others to do the same. Subscribe to the show and learn more by visiting alltogether.show. And now, your host, Eric Satz.
My guest on the show this week is Steve Walsh, founder of Hands-On Angel. Talk about onomatopoeia. Hands-On Angel is the perfect descriptor for Steve, and it's no surprise that he came up with the name himself. He's a self-taught angel investor who has built quite a portfolio and has a superpower for making appropriate connections. Whether it's founder to founder or founder to investor, he is a network powerhouse. I have many emails in my inbox which begin, "One of the benefits of networking is the opportunity to spend time with terrific people." And usually they end, "I hope you two connect. Cheers, Steve." I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it.
This episode of the All Together Show is brought to you by Alto IRA. Alto is a digital, self-directed IRA company modernizing IRA investing. They make it easy and cost-effective for individual investors to access their retirement savings and invest in alternative assets. To learn more, visit altoira.com.
Steve Walsh, welcome to the show, buddy.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. So I look at your background, and you've been in sales kind of the majority of your professional life, right? You were with Cox Communications, you were with Comcast, and then all of a sudden you start investing in things. At least that's what it kind of looks like, right? And now not only are you investing in other entrepreneurs, you're investing in yourself. You're running your own business. You got a partner, which we'll get to and we'll talk about. But if I say to you, who is Steve Walsh? What do you say? What's the response?
I usually say this is my real hair. It's not some color. I like to call myself a recovering operator. That's really what I say. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a recovering operator. And I think usually in that order. And I get to spend my days with folks like you in the entrepreneur ecosystem now, whether that's my own company that I'm trying to build in Procurement, or other startups that I invest in, early stage companies like Alto. And that's where I spend my time. And I've been doing that about 2 years. And Eric, honestly, I don't want to do anything else the rest of my life. I really don't. It's addicting. I think you have to be a little bit left of center to do this for a living. And you really do. My wife's favorite comment is, I've never seen Steve work so hard for so little money and be so happy in his entire life. And I don't think anyone could say anything nicer about me. So that's really who I am.
I love that. Kids?
2 boys, 13 and 19. So 13, I'm kind of still cool. He kind of listens to me. 19, my name is Yo. Yo. And I'm like, okay, what do you need? What do you mean, what do I need? I go, well, whenever you say yo, it means you need money or you did something wrong. So what do you need?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So let's go way back. You're born in Boston, Massachusetts, and grew up not far away in Woburn. Did I pronounce that right? Woburn?
Woburn.
Okay. In the Northeast, it's hard to know which letters you pronounce or don't.
Good point. Yep. We tend to extend the vowels. Yep.
And by the way, no surprise to me that I see you're a Leo. Not surprised by that at all.
Not at all.
Tell me about your parents and your childhood. What did your parents do?
So I was real fortunate. I had 2 unbelievable parents. My dad was an educator. He was an elementary school principal for 35 years. And my mom was a secretary, a sales secretary for a technology company. And kind of had a blue collar, middle class lifestyle. Woburn, claim to fame for Woburn is, if you ever saw the movie A Civil Action with John Travolta, about the company that poisoned the water and people got leukemia. My mother worked for that company, actually, W.R. Grace, during all of that happening. And it was a really awful time to live in that town because a lot of people we know got sick. A lot of people my mother worked with at the company actually got ill. She had to actually be deposed because she worked at the company at the time. It was really a freaky time. But I had a very middle-class, blue-collar lifestyle. My parents worked really hard to put my brother and I in through private school going up. And then when it came time to go to college, my brother went sort of the private school route. He went to Hofstra. And I wanted to follow what my dad did just from the standpoint of he was a state school kid. He went to Boston State. And when I looked at my brother, who's 6 years older, and the fact that when he graduated, he had a ton of loans and was really paying loans till he was like in his mid-30s. And this is 30 years ago. God only knows what it's going to be like today. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to be a state schools kid. And I chose UMass Amherst. I got an awesome education, met my wife there. And I know you have an affinity for the town Amherst. Could you pick a better college town? You really couldn't. It's a place that we go back to every year. And I have friends that I was an RA with there that are still friends to this day. And I see all the time. And it was just a great time in my life. I was real fortunate. My parents worked really hard to give me a life they never had. And we never wanted for anything, but we also had to work for everything, I think is a good way to describe my childhood.
You never wanted for anything, but you had to work for everything. I really like that. I think words to live by. I mean,
really is.
Builds character.
My parents gave me love, a great education, and a start. And after that, it was up to me. And I want it no other way.
Where was high school?
I went to Malden Catholic, which was a blue-collar Catholic preps all-boys school in Malden, Massachusetts, top 100 school, and taught me unbelievably well. I would say that high school was harder than college for me. I was the kid in my neighborhood that when I came home from school every day, my friends that went to public school were out playing, and I had 3 hours of homework every night. And that was that way in my house till I was a senior in high school. And Monday to Friday, I wasn't doing anything after school because I had a commute almost an hour to school each way on a public bus, taking MBTA transportation because we lived 45 minutes from it and my parents couldn't drive me until I got my license. So I had a 2-hour commute each way, sometimes in the snow, and I had 3 hours of homework. It was hard, but it taught me how to read and write and articulate myself. And I will say a lot of the success I've had in life is because of the education I got there. It was an amazing place. My brother went there too. College was easy after that. And when I was in college, I'm like, what's this? You take like 2 classes a day for 2 hours. What do you do with the rest of your day? Like, what am I supposed to do? And it was great.
Similarly, I had an amazing high school experience. Now, it was very opposite from yours in that it was a very large public school. But for me, there's no question, those are the formative years. Like, that's where the work habits are established. That's where the patterns are established. That's I think where you figure out who you are and what you want to be, and by what you want to be, I mean type of person.
And you had the opposite. I went public private. I went private public. You went public private.
That's right. I mean, and we were at Amherst at the same time. We had 2 years of overlap. So you graduated in 93. I graduated in 91.
I actually got to take a few classes at Amherst College through the 5-college consortium. And I really realized pretty quickly I wasn't in Whoville. So I played Club Lax at UMass for 4 years. And I had practice. And I took a few classes at Amherst. I took a history course because I'm like, let's go see what this Amherst College thing's about, right? It's down the street. It's one of the most prestigious colleges at the time. When I went to UMass, I think Amherst was either the toughest or the second toughest school in the country to get into. So I'm like, I can take classes there for the same tuition. Let me go do it. Well, the class I chose, I had lax practice right after, so I didn't have time to change. So I wore my practice uniform, which at UMass at the time was, the worst, dirtiest shorts you could have and some obscene T-shirt that said like, I drink beer, do you? And I go and I got like a do-rag on, an earring in, and I walk into the class and I sit down and everyone in that class knew I definitely didn't go to Amherst College. You Amherst guys there with smoking jackets and pipes and whatever. So I sit down and I'm sitting down and the kids are looking at me. They're like, do you go here? I'm like, no, I go to the zoo down the street, play lax. What's up? And they're like, oh, great. But it was an awesome experience because I got to see what that college was about. And it was awesome. I had a great time doing it.
So I just want to say, by the way, I've never owned a smoking jacket. I just want to get that out there. This this is pretty much how I went to class in my Amherst sweatshirt. So I had the exact opposite experience of you, by the way, because I took an accounting class, which you couldn't take at Amherst College, way too practical. I took an accounting class at UMass, me and like 500 other people. So it was very early in the morning, and it was right after my newspaper route. So I distributed papers on Amherst College to all the students at Amherst. And so I would wake up early, very early, to distribute, paperboy newspapers to all my customers. And then I was supposed to go to my accounting class. I was often a little bit too tired to make it to my accounting class. Yeah, I'm like, they're not going to miss me. There are 500 other people there. It'd be fine.
Who cares?
So what happens after? Well, actually, I want to hear the story. How do you meet your wife?
So she's going to be pissed because I'll tell you this, but that's okay. So what I like to say about my wife, so I met my wife actually when I was a freshman at UMass. She wasn't going there. She actually had a full-time job, but what I like to say is she was dating all my friends. I met her because at one point she had gone out with two of my friends that lived on my floor and were really good friends of mine. So she and I became friends. We hung out in the same circles. I was dating someone else. So was she. And then by my senior year, I had ended a relationship and so did she. And we were just friendly and we started hanging out a lot more often and realized we liked the same things and we really liked spending time together. And then that was really it. It wasn't anything that I didn't say, will you go out with me? It was just, we spent so much time together. And after like the 10th time you're hanging out together, just the two of you, and you're having a really good time, you're like, are we dating? Is this a thing? I don't really know. And that's how it happened. And we've been married 24 years and have two boys together. And I couldn't ask for a better partner in life. She believes in me. I have no idea why. And even when I don't believe in myself. And when I left Comcast and just thought about becoming an entrepreneur, because I had offers to go to other companies, I said to her, I think I'm going to go become an entrepreneur. And here's why. And I laid out what I want to do and I want to better myself. And I've got two kids, one that's college age, one that still has to go to college. And I was expecting her to say, well, we got to educate the kids and do all this stuff. She was like, I think that's exactly what you should do. I think you've been making hundreds of millions of dollars for other people. I think you know more than anybody about this business. And I just think you were born to do this. And you're an entrepreneur. You know this. Not everybody has a spouse like that says, oh, yeah, we won't worry about health insurance. Oh, and income and where we'll live. Just go bet on yourself, honey. You have a good time. And she really did. And 2 years later, she has never looked back. And I think part of it is I've never worried about making money. I'm not going to start now. Just haven't.
I mean, here's the softball question, and I'll just tee it up for you because you've kind of answered it already. But what would you say is the single most important thing about being an entrepreneur?
Your ability to get up off the ground, because you're going to be knocked down probably every day. I think I fell over myself about 4 times this morning. No 2 days are alike, so that's the good news. The bad news is you're going to fail a lot. And your ability to not quit, your ability to persevere, your ability to push through the wall when no one else thinks it can be done is by far the key to success. And I know in your background, Eric, this is not your first gig. This is not the first time you've been an entrepreneur. And it was hard and it wasn't always wildly successful. And I just think that one of the bets I place in Alto as an investor and a customer is the fact that I know your background and I know you didn't hit it out of the park every time. And I think that's a really good thing. And it shows that you've got grit. And I like anybody that's gritty.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I don't disagree with anything you said, by the way, but I was kind of hoping you were going to say you have to have a partner, a life partner that fully supports you and is behind you 100%. Otherwise, I think it falls apart. And so you said you've been married 24 years. I want to play a little geography here. So 1996?
1996, exactly. Yep.
What was the date?
September 21st. It's the only date I ever can remember. I don't remember any other dates. I forget everyone's birthdays. It's awful.
So we are just a little bit ahead of you. June of 1996.
Okay.
And we also met in Amherst. So
something in the water, man.
It's a small world. Something in the water.
And I still claim that Antonio's is the best pizza place in the world. In the world.
Hands down.
Hands down. Everyone's like, oh, I said, you have no idea. And every person I've taken goes, this might be the best pizza I've ever had in my life.
Last time I was at Antonio's, Harrison Ford was there.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was dropping his son off at Amherst College.
Of course he
actually.
was.
So
I would have been really impressed if you said Harrison Ford was dropping himself off at UMass, but not so much.
I saw him the evening before at dinner, and because I was dropping my daughter off at Amherst College as a freshman, and we had no idea. I mean, he was sitting with his wife. Her name is what? Callista Flockhart. Is that right?
Yep.
Ally McBeal.
Ally McBeal, of course. Yeah.
So he's sitting with Ally McBeal.
Pretty cool.
And I said, and so I'm looking right at Ally McBeal, and I say to my wife and daughter, I'm like, hey, I'm not looking right at Ally McBeal. Sorry. I'm looking right at Harrison Ford. Okay. Except he's got like the hair down to here and a full beard.
Oh, that's right.
And,
yeah. He looks like a homeless person.
Except for his clothes. Yes.
Right.
So I'm looking at this guy, and it's a little dark in the restaurant. And I say, hey, I think that's Harrison Ford. Right. And my wife says, you think you like recognize everybody. I doubt it's Harrison Ford. Right. And then Ally McBeal walks in with their son. I'm like, nope, it's Harrison Ford because that's Ally McBeal. So
that's
kind
awesome.
of funny.
And of course, in your head, all you can hear is da 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 da.
Yeah. and then he was in Antonio's the next day, which is kind of funny. But I digress. Anyway, education is sort of a lifelong thing for you. I mean, you've been to the Harvard Business School executive education. You did Harvard Business School when you were at Comcast in their strategic sales program. What did you get out of those experiences that was important for you?
I got to go and do something that I talked about with my dad when I was a kid. I said when I was a kid, I always wanted the opportunity to go to Harvard. And I knew my parents couldn't afford it. And I knew it just wasn't in the cards. I wasn't that kind of student. Like I wasn't a straight A student. I was an AB student. I played sports, but I didn't fit the profile of a Harvard student. And I'm like, and even if I get in, even then it was like $40,000 a year. I'm like, that's not what I'm signing up for. So when I had the opportunity to do the program, and I did two different programs there, one was a strategic sales program and one was an executive education program. I did it for two reasons. One, because I always want to continually learn. I think that's just in my DNA. And the other was it was for my dad, because I wanted him, and he's been passed away 20 years, but in my mind, I was doing something to show him that I could do it.
That's really cool. So, I think you have to be a learner in order to invest in alternative assets. I'd love to understand from you your process, right? Because hopefully there are a lot of angels that are listening to the show. And you are a guy who was an operator, was in sales, you become an entrepreneur, but you are a very active angel investor. What has been this progression? How did that happen? What do you do in your decision making to get to yes or no?
So I'll start with how did it happen? When I became an entrepreneur, and what you realize pretty quickly, because you are one, is that the best way to learn is by spending time with other entrepreneurs, because they've done something you haven't done and they probably have something to teach you. And especially around the things like fundraising, which is one of the hardest things to do as an entrepreneur. And the more time I spent with them and learned, it went kind of like this. Eric, you have a really cool company. You got a lot of traction. Wow, that's fun. Are you doing a raise? Is there any chance I could get in that round? And then I looked at my own portfolio, because I've always been a big investor in traditional things, stocks, mutual funds, real estate, cars, wine. And I looked at it, and the only part of my portfolio I wasn't investing in was early stage companies, because I wasn't in it every day and I didn't have context. Well, once I was in the life, it almost became a no-brainer. I'm like, not only is it smart to take a percentage of my portfolio, and I don't want to be stupid, so let's take a small, like 5-10% of my portfolio and put it into early stage companies, because I'm not in that space. And the other thing I looked at was, when I looked at people that were having success in the space and having life-changing success, like you and I have talked about Jason Calacanis, blue-collar kid that took $100,000 and made it into $100 million. I don't think that the public markets today are a place where you can make life-changing wealth decisions. I just don't. I think that by the time a company gets public, the wealth, the ability has already been taken out of it. The upside has already been taken out of it, and no one's going to have life-changing wealth by selling and buying Apple stock every day. I just don't see it. So in order to have unbelievable returns, you have to be able to take, in some cases, additional risk. And I was willing to take a percentage of my portfolio and put that risk into early stage startups because I looked at some of the people doing this, and Jason is one of them, Gil Pacino, who I know you know is another, Zach Kalias, Ed Rowan. And I go, these guys are making bets across a diverse portfolio over a 5 to 10 year period. And every time they place a bet, every 30 of them turns into a friggin' unicorn. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying it's easy, but if you have and surround yourself with people that know what they're doing and they have a good process for diligence, and you place enough bets and you wait and double down on follow-on rounds as companies have success metrics hit, there is a process and there is a strategy that you can make money doing this. So I really got hooked into alternative assets. And what really accelerated my investing, candidly, Eric, was my introduction to Alto, because my first couple of investments, I did old school, I'll call it. You've talked about it on your podcast, the paperwork nightmare. And my first investment I did through Jason Calacanis, I was trying to get the paperwork done. And I was literally like, this is awful. I'm signing all these documents. Wiring funds is hard. And then I just stumbled upon your podcast where you talked about Alto and what you were building. And I'm like, this might be interesting. And then I got to meet you and I got to meet your team, like James O'Brien. And I was like, if these guys really can pull off what they say, this could be game changing. And then I did a couple of transactions and I was like, it's never going to be this easy. And I'm like, click, 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 done. Money transferred. I'm like, okay. And then I get introduced to the process, and then candidly, I got hooked. And it made it a really easy way. My wife would say, honey, maybe 4 investment this month is enough. Might want to take hit the pause button. But you really did make it easy to the point where you took the pain out of early stage investing, which really is, it's hard if you don't have a platform like Alto to do this. That's what really got me hooked. And but I have a process that I only invest alongside other people like Jason and Gil, because they know more than I do. I'm just not that smart. Or I only invest in companies that I have used their product a lot, have deep knowledge of what they're doing, and candidly have gotten to know the founders, like in the case with you.
But Jason and Gil, so Jason is Launch and Gil is Flight VC. And I want to give a shout out to David Weisbert as well, who Flight VC.
Runs the day to day, man. He does the hard work.
Yeah, no, David does the hard work for sure. Hardest working guy in VC land that I know. So they do a considerable amount of diligence, homework, research before you see it. Do you just invest in everything? Or is there something about what you read that gets you over the hump to say yes?
For me, I try to stay in my swim lanes, and my swim lanes tend to be tech-enabled products, and that could be different types of tech. It could be SaaS tech, it could be marketplaces, it could be fintech, but tech-enabled is my swim lanes. I tend to invest alongside experts. And the biggest thing for me is, and Jason is great about this, is I bet the jockey, not the horse. It's the founder. In every deal I've done with Jason, he not only gives you the deck, he gives you the founder's email, the founder's cell phone. He does a Zoom call with the founder. And I take those to heart. And most of my bets are made because I get a chance to interface with the founder and I see something that I go, I don't know if this company's going to win, but this person's going to win. And I'm betting on them. And even if this company fails, I'm going to bet on them enough that something they do is going to make it. And that's really, for me, the deal memos are great and there's a lot of diligence, but I have made investments in, I'll use, Steezy is a good example. Jason's really high on Steezy, the dance app. I've invested in them 3 times. I can't dance. I hate dancing, but the company's a rocket ship. The founder's unbelievable. Jason's investing in him so many times, and everybody else that I know in Silicon Valley is dumping money into this company. So I go, what the hell do I know? The guy's a rock star. And I know every millennial I know is using the app. So to me, I go, that says something. But in most cases, it's almost always the founder. It just is. I didn't invest in Alto. I was a customer, but I wasn't an investor until I got to spend time with you and your team.
You give me goosebumps. And I think this is a great tie to your greatest influence. I asked you so you filled out a questionnaire for me a while ago. Do you remember the answer you gave to greatest influence?
My brother?
Yeah. Tell us about your brother and why he's the greatest influence on you.
I have better hair, but he's a little older. He's 6 years older. Because he's been an entrepreneur for 30 years and has told me time and time again. And when he became an entrepreneur, I didn't get it. My dad didn't get it. He got offered a vice. He was in Hollywood working for Paramount Television in research, and had a lot of success. And was offered a vice presidency of Paramount at a really young age. And this would have been just a rocket ship of a career. And he got offered the job and he turned it down because he really wanted to be a voiceover actor and he really wanted to be in the voiceover business. So he left a stable, awesome, the creme de la creme of studios in Hollywood as a VP level to go be an actor and in voiceover. And I didn't get it. My dad didn't. And he was just like, I want to bet on myself. I hate managing people. I think I have this gift. And that has turned into not just a great career for him, but now he's built a whole business around voiceovers and coaching. And now he does coaching for executives and built a second company doing it. And this was 30 years ago. And I have seen, and there's been, as an entrepreneur, good years and bad years, a lot of money, struggling with money and everything in between. But he's the happiest person I know. And and he never complains about what he does. In fact, he works harder than almost anybody I ever know because it doesn't seem like work to him. And when I left corporate America, I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be him. And he's like, you could have been me a long time ago, but don't be me, be you. I don't know. It's just, I talk to him every day and he inspires me. He just does. It's awesome.
That's amazing. I love that. So it doesn't feel like work. And I agree with that. Not every day is easy. What do you do when it's not easy?
I call my wife. I call my brother Dave. I call my business partner Mo. Or I just put my head down and plow through it. I mean, when I do, Eric, I say, what's the alternative? Going back to working for someone else and giving up what I like to call my freedom. I listen a lot to like Naval Ravikant, who founded Angel List. And he said he had something to say that even if you're at a top level company, and I was a VP at a Fortune 50 company. If you work at a place where someone has to tell you what to wear, what time to show up, and how to act, then you're not free. I don't have any of that anymore. So on the days when it's really tough, I look at the fact that I haven't worn a tie in 2 years, and 8 to 10 every day is my workout time to invest in me. And I choose who I do business with and on what terms. I don't know if I can ever give that up. So when the days are really hard, I think about that and I think about a life that I don't want. And that just makes me put my head down and get back to work and stop feeling sorry for myself. That's it.
I love it. So I have to ask, hot cream. You put hot cream in your coffee.
I do.
Yeah. How does that work? How do you heat up the cream?
No,
what do you do?
No, the question was iced or hot coffee. I chose hot.
Okay.
And cream or no cream. I chose cream.
That's
see.
How I
read that question.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
okay.
I'd like
I
to
get
know how to put hot cream in my coffee too. That'd be kind of interesting.
So I do. I actually microwave the cream before I put it in the coffee. Now that I live and work at home like everybody else during a pandemic.
Right.
So that my coffee doesn't get cold when I put the cream in. I hate it when my coffee gets cold.
You're like a barista CEO. It's awesome.
Well, I had a coffee business.
I did know that. And you had a food business too.
I did have a food business. So that's interesting, by the way. I had a question on there which said side preference, and you said left. What was your interpretation of that question, side preference? This is my favorite question, by the way.
Yeah, I thought about it for a minute. I'm going, is he talking about side of the bed, my political affiliation? And the funny thing is, my answer to all of those is left. So I sleep on the left side of the bed. I consider myself a lifelong Democrat, although, I describe myself to people that I'm a lifelong Democrat that leads a Republican lifestyle. I believe in, smaller government, less taxes, but I also believe in women's choice. I believe in rights for everybody, LGBTQ. So it's just interesting. People like, I don't understand. I'm like, I don't want to pay more in taxes and I don't want the government in my shit, but I can also have a view of equality for everybody at the same time. And, when I think of left, I think of that and I sleep on the left side of the bed. That's it.
So do you sleep on the left side of the bed when you're looking at the bed or when you're in the bed?
When I'm in the bed, I'm on the left.
Okay.
Yep.
So by the way, the question came from, I was thinking about the side of the bed that I sleep on because I have this superstitious thing. And so that is actually where the question came from. Side preference was like, which side of the bed do you sleep on? Because I won't switch. So at one point in our marriage, we switched sides. All this bad shit happened until I figured out that the problem was we were sleeping on the wrong sides of the bed. I'm like, hey, we got to switch back.
And then bad.
And it's been awesome ever since.
Awesome.
So, all right. So talk to me about Procurement, which is, of course, your business. What does it do? Why this business? How's it going?
We help businesses find resources with just a zip code. That's it. So when I left corporate America.
What kind of resources?
So technology resources. Think of it as broadband internet service, unified communications. But think of it this way. Think of a small business nowadays, 100 employees or less. I came from an industry of serving them. And when you're a small business owner, you need a lot of things, right? You need everything. You don't just need broadband and phone. You need, who am I going to use for bookkeeping? Who am I going to use for accounting, legal, insurance? So I looked at it and said, well, what if we, because my background is the technology industry, what if we built a marketplace that based on someone's zip code, we could show them all the providers for whatever they need? Now we're starting with broadband service because it's a commodity product that every small business owner needs. And I think it should be digitized with choice and transparency because that's everything that the carriers aren't. I came from an industry where I didn't want to go to the grocery store because people would verbally assault me because I was wearing a shirt from the company I represented. And they would start with the finger and be like, let me tell you about your company and what you've done to me. I'm like, I'm just trying to buy milk. Could you not assault me? So, but it was really the process. It was the fact that business owners felt that, there's no transparency. Who's giving me a good deal? And by the way, there's this thing called marketplaces that I use for every other part of my life. Can someone just do one for small businesses? So I'm like, why don't I just do that? So that's really what we've been doing. So we've spent the last year building our tech, raising capital, which is a whole lot of fun. And we just launched a few weeks ago. So we've got some initial customers and some traffic going, which is great. We're about to open up another round because you know this from personal experience. You never stop fundraising. And as soon as you close a round, you need to open another one because we raised enough to build the tech stack and launch. But now it's about how do we grow it? And it's been incredibly fun. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. I have 11 investors, most of which I know from the industry that are just, I'm so fortunate. They're unbelievable. And because they think of new ways to help drive stuff, they think of new ways to help us grow. Not one of them ever calls me with the, how's my money doing? They call me with, hey, I was thinking about you today and I have a guy that you should partner with. Let me introduce you. I was thinking about you at an industry conference and you should be on this panel and I already booked you for it. I'm so fortunate. So I surround myself with some really good people and it's been a hell of a lot of fun. So we'll see where it goes, but it's been fun.
Has the sort of WeWork, Industrious, the whole kind of turnkey small business office solution all in one place, has that affected the market at all for you?
I think what's affected the market more is people understanding that what used to look like work a year ago is not what work looks like today. And now people that didn't think about re-looking at their technology solutions or any of their solutions for what I call fixed cost are now very open to it because crap, I got to look, I'm paying that rent on an office I'm not using. Maybe we should look at that. Oh, wait a minute. We're paying for broadband services at the office, but now I have 8 employees at home that want a second connection at home. How do I do that? How do I integrate Zoom and Slack? And so now people are more open to looking at all their needs, and you need someone to help them navigate that. So I think that's really the change that's happened. I think there'll be a place for the WeWorks of the world, but we can play in that too. That's okay. But I think what's really going to happen is you're going to see this distributed workforce, which is what my company does, where people have needs where employees are all over the place. And you have to be able to figure out how to connect all those systems with technology. So I think it's one of my investors said, you're either the dumbest guy in the world for starting a company like this in the pandemic, or you might be the smartest. Time will tell.
I think that's always the answer. Time will tell, right? But you got to start somewhere. What's been the hardest part of building the marketplace, of building the tech stack? Because I don't think you're doing any coding.
No, I'm not. Yeah, you figured that out. I'm not a coder. I got introduced from another entrepreneur to my developer. He's in Miami, but he's got a team in the Ukraine that he's been working with for years. So I get what I like to call onshore development for offshore rates, which is nice. And he's leveraged a bunch of platform stuff that he had already built for some other companies. So what I did is I met an entrepreneur that's in the medical industry, and he showed me a site, and it's a marketplace so you can find healthcare and hospitals and doctors. But I looked at it, and I looked at what he did, and I told him what I want to do. He goes, let me show you something. So he showed me his marketplace, and he goes, you want to do this except for services and technology. You got to meet my developer, because he could apply his tech stack to you, and we just do a new UX on it, and you get 5 years worth of development at a third of the cost. And that's really what we did. And I met Ashwin, and he's been a great partner. And I got a lot of quotes from a lot of dev shops to do what we did. And it was a lot of money. And for what we ended up launching and how fast we were able to do it, I was just very lucky. But it came through me meeting an entrepreneur and me saying, hey, I don't know how to choose a dev shop, and I don't know where to choose them and what to look at. And he's like, let me introduce you to some people. And I did that 4 or 5 times with other entrepreneurs. And then I finally met Ashwin, and he got what I was doing. And then he showed me how he could do it faster for less and quality. And I'm like, this is it. And that's really how I got the tech stack built.
That's really cool. I mean, you have to ask a lot of questions when you're starting something. You never know when you're going to see 2 dots that ought to be connected. And so long as you've got your eyes and ears open, if you can connect those dots, it can make your life a hell of a lot easier.
Well, and when I chose my digital marketing guy, Josh, and Ashwin, what I said to both of them is, I want 4 customers. They're like, what? I said, I want to talk to 4 of your customers. Not one, I want to talk to 4 of them. And I don't want you on the phone, and I just want their cell phones. And I'm not going to tell you up front what I'm going to ask them, and I just want to talk to them. And in every conversation, I was like, I don't care about their ability. Tell me what kind of person they are. Do they do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it? Do they do it on time and on budget? And if they're going to be over budget, do they tell you ahead of time, or do they let the budget just go over and then surprise you? Because as an entrepreneur, thou shalt not run out of cash, right? You got to protect the cash.
Rule number one. Rule number one.
These nightmares is my developer didn't tell me it was going to be 50% more and take 6 months longer, and I ran out of cash. So I spent time up front asking those questions. And that's really what sold me on these guys. It wasn't, do they understand how to do something in WordPress? Because there's a lot of people that do that.
So now I have the $24,000, $64,000. I forget how big the pyramid is, but did you come in on time and on budget?
No, because nothing ever does when you're building software.
It's like building a house, man.
But you know something, Eric? I wasn't surprised by it, because I had a Slack room with him and his entire team. So we were real time sharing every day where we were. And candidly, and you know this, you're the entrepreneur, I was going, I don't like this, change this, do this, add this. Oh, I have a new feature. And he's like, well, that costs. We had its time and materials. So I was part of the problem. In the end, I look at where we ended and I go, even with the overrun, all the other agencies that were quoting me were 3 to 4x of that. So I still shoot in par.
That's amazing. So what do your kids think? What do your boys think?
My 13-year-old just asked me, when are you guys going to make money? Which is 13. And my 19-year-old is intrigued because he's trying to bet on, now that I see my dad doing it, maybe I want to be an entrepreneur, or maybe I don't want to work for anybody else. And he's just starting his life. So, what I told him is, I think I had the benefit of an unbelievable foundation. I just did. Not just education-wise, life-wise. When I went to raise money, I didn't look like your typical entrepreneur. I wasn't a 20-year-old kid that went to Stanford and I know how to code. But what I was is a 20-something-year business person that when you say to me, do you know how to run a P&L or make a P&L? Do you understand how to write sales plans? Do you understand compensation? Do you understand burn rate on cash? I was like, yeah, of course I do. So for me, the hard stuff was, how do you choose a coder? How do you create a Delaware C Corp? I've worked for them, but I've never built one. That was the stuff for me. But people that were investing in me were like, that's the easy stuff. You actually know the business side, which most of the entrepreneurs don't know. And what I've advised my oldest is, you can be anything you want. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, I wish you well. But just make sure you have a good foundation. You have to have some sort of a skill you can leverage. Like the response of, what do you want to do? And your response is, I don't know. Well, that's not a skill. I don't know is not a skill. So go figure out what you're passionate about, and the money will come. It just will.
So what's the single most important skill you think someone needs to have to start a company?
Belief in themselves. You don't believe in yourself, you'll never convince investors, you'll never convince customers, you'll never convince anybody to work for you. When you are employee number one, if you don't believe in yourself and your vision, you can't ask anyone else to come along for the ride, period.
Well, Steve, I don't know where else we go from that. I mean, I think that is the beginning, the middle, and the end right there. You got to believe in yourself. And so I want to thank you for being on the show, for being a customer, for being an investor, for being someone that other angels can look to and understand what the process is like to make bets on other folks. And I really hope that the rest of America can follow in your footsteps, really. I think if we don't, then we don't actually get the financial future that we all would like for ourselves, right? And so,
I agree.
Yeah. So thank you for doing it. Thank you for being on the show. And congratulations on getting launched. I think that's the hardest part. Well, it's the second hardest part. The hardest part is starting.
I agree.
Getting launched is the next hardest part. So thank you again for spending the time with us. And it's great to see you as always.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on and for letting me be part of your world. So I appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. Go Amherst.
You got it, brother.
The Altogether Show is brought to you by Alto IRA. Alto knows that the public markets offer insufficient diversification of retirement accounts. That's why Alto developed a streamlined platform to make it easy and cost-effective for anyone to invest their tax-advantaged retirement savings in alternatives. Assets like real estate, VC, and crypto that are outside of the public markets and available through Alto's 21 platform partners. To learn more, visit altoira.com.